Captain Hyunwoo stared at the strange signal on his ship's screen. The UES Perseverance was 3 days out from Earth when the distress call reached them. It was not like any signal humans had ever heard before. The sound was musical, almost like singing, but underneath it was clearly a cry for help. "Captain, the signal is coming from about 2 hours away," said Pilot Taemin from his chair. His fingers moved quickly over the controls. "Should we go check it out?" Hyunwoo nodded. "Set course. If someone needs help out here, we should try to help them." He had been a captain for 10 years, but this was his first real deep space mission. Earth had only recently developed faster-than-light travel, and every trip still felt like an adventure. The ship they found was unlike anything humans had ever seen. It looked like it was made of crystal and silver, floating in space like a beautiful piece of art. But something was wrong with it. Parts of it were dark, and it was spinning slowly as if it had lost control. "Wow," whispered Engineer So-Young as she looked at the alien ship on the main screen. "It's beautiful, but it looks damaged." Dr. Ji-hai, the ship's scientist who studied alien life, leaned forward in her chair. "This is it. This is really it. First contact with aliens." Her voice shook with excitement and fear. Hyunwoo opened a communication channel. "Unknown vessel. This is Captain Hyunwoo of the Earth ship Perseverance. We received your distress signal. Do you need help?" For a moment there was only silence, then a voice came through the speakers. It was soft and high like wind through leaves. "Earth ship? We do not know this word, Earth. I am Commander Retel of the Althan ship Velthara. Yes, we need help. Our power systems have failed." "We're coming alongside to help," Hyunwoo said. "Can you take on visitors?" "Yes, but be careful. We will need to adjust our ship's environment for you." An hour later, Hyunwoo, Dr. Ji-hai, and Engineer So-Young put on their spacesuits and crossed into the alien ship. The moment they stepped inside, they felt strange. Everything seemed to float a little. Their boots felt heavy on the floor, but their bodies felt light. "The gravity here is very low," So-Young said through her radio, "maybe 1/5 of what we're used to on Earth." They walked down a hallway that curved like the inside of a flower. The walls glowed with soft blue light. When they reached the main room, they saw the aliens for the first time. The Althan were tall and thin, with skin that looked like it was made of pearl. They moved like dancers, floating gracefully from place to place. Their arms and legs were long and delicate. When they walked, they barely seemed to touch the ground. Commander Retel came forward to greet them. He was taller than any human, but he looked fragile, like he might break if someone touched him too hard. His eyes were large and silver, and when he looked at the humans, his face showed surprise. "You are heavy," Retel said, watching as the humans walked. To him, they looked clumsy and slow. Every step they took seemed to shake the floor. "Your species must be very strong to carry such weight." Dr. Ji-hai tried to smile. "We come from a world with stronger gravity than yours. We're used to it." Another alien floated over to them. This one was smaller and moved even more gracefully. "I am Science Officer Velara," she said. Her voice was like music. "We have never seen beings like you. You move like heavy machines." The humans looked at each other. They were trying to be polite, but they could see that the aliens thought they were clumsy and stupid. "What is wrong with your ship?" So-Young asked, trying to change the subject. "Our crystal power core has cracked," Retel explained. "We cannot fix it ourselves. The crack is too small for our tools to reach." So-Young looked at the power core. It was a beautiful crystal the size of a basketball, but she could see a tiny crack running through it. "I think I can fix this," she said. "But I'll need to use human tools." She went back to get her repair kit. When she returned, the aliens watched in amazement as she worked. Her thick fingers, which looked clumsy to them, moved the tiny tools with perfect control. She worked for an hour, her heavy movements careful and precise. "There," she said finally. "That should hold until you can get home." The alien stared as the power core began to glow again. "Lights came on all over the ship. How did you do that?" Velara asked. "Your fingers are so thick. How could you work with such small parts?" So-Young shrugged. "Practice, I guess." Commander Retel looked at the humans with new eyes, but not the kind they hoped for. "Your species is interesting," he said slowly. "You have learned to build tools to help with your physical problems." Dr. Ji-hai felt her face grow hot with anger, but she stayed polite. "We've achieved faster-than-light travel, advanced computers, and we've explored our entire solar system." "Fascinating," Velara said, but her tone suggested she didn't really believe it. Heavy world species often develop tool use to compensate for their limitations. The meeting continued for another hour, but it was clear that the aliens saw humans as primitive. They spoke to them the way adults might speak to clever children. When Hyunwoo mentioned Earth's technology, the alien smiled politely but obviously thought he was exaggerating. "We would be interested in learning more about your species," Retail said as the humans prepared to leave. "Perhaps we could arrange a cultural exchange. It would be educational to study how heavy world species develop." Back on their own ship, the humans sat in silence for a while. "They think we're stupid," Taemin said finally. "Not stupid," Dr. Jihai corrected. "Just primitive. They think we're like smart animals who learn to use tools." Hyunwoo nodded grimly. "They have no idea what humans are capable of. Maybe it's time we showed them." The seeds of challenge were planted. Neither species understood yet how wrong the aliens were about humanity, or how dangerous it could be to underestimate beings forged by the crushing weight of Earth's gravity. 3 weeks after first contact, Captain Dong-hyun stood in the Great Hall of Harmony's Edge, the biggest space station in the galaxy. Representatives from dozens of alien species filled the huge room, all of them curious about the new species called humans. The station was built for many different types of aliens, so the gravity changed from section to section. In the main hall, it was set to what most aliens considered normal, about 1/4 of Earth's gravity. Dong-hyun and his crew felt like they were floating, but they tried to walk normally. "The humans claim to have developed faster than light travel independently," announced Ambassador Thelinar, an Althan who seemed to be in charge of the meeting. His voice carried across the hall like silver bells. "They also claim to have weapons capable of destroying entire asteroids." Murmurs went through the crowd. Many aliens looked at the small group of humans with doubt. Dong-hyun could see it in their faces. They thought humans were lying. First Officer Yoonji whispered to her captain, "They don't believe us." "Of course they don't," Dong-hyun whispered back. "Look at us compared to them." It was true. The other aliens in the hall moved with grace and beauty. The Althan floated like ghosts. The insect-like Jektar had wings that sparkled in the light. The plant-based Florins swayed like trees in a gentle breeze. Next to them, the humans looked heavy and awkward. Ambassador Thelinar continued his speech. "We must be careful about accepting these claims. The humans come from what they call a heavy world. Such species often develop creative stories about their abilities to compensate for their physical limitations." Dong-hyun felt his anger growing. Around him, he could see his crew getting mad too. Engineer Hana's hands were tight fists. Medical Officer Woo Jin's jaw was set hard. Marine Sergeant Kyung-ho looked like he wanted to fight someone. "With respect, Ambassador," Dong-hyun said, standing up. His voice was louder than he meant it to be, and several aliens jumped at the sound. "Humans don't need to make up stories about what we can do." Thelinar looked down at him with silver eyes that seemed amused. "Captain Dong-hyun, please understand. We mean no insult. It is simply that heavy world species have certain limitations. Your thick bones and dense muscles are clearly designed for high-gravity survival, not for the delicate work required for advanced technology." The hall was quiet now. Everyone was watching to see what would happen. "You think we're too clumsy to build starships?" asked First Officer Yoonji, her voice calm but dangerous. "Not clumsy," said another Althan science officer, Velara. "Simply physically limited. Your nervous systems must work so hard just to move your heavy bodies that there is little energy left for complex thinking." That was too much. Sergeant Kyung-ho started to stand up, but Dong-hyun put a hand on his shoulder. "If you doubt our abilities," Dong-hyun said slowly, "perhaps we could arrange a demonstration." Ambassador Thelinar's face lit up with interest. "A demonstration? What kind of demonstration?" Unji leaned forward. "You choose the test, any test. We'll prove that humans can handle whatever you think we can't." The aliens began talking among themselves in their musical languages. After a few minutes, Thelinar turned back to the humans. "We have discussed this," he said. "There is a training facility on planet Kathvar, where our elite warriors learn to fight in extreme conditions. The facility can create gravity up to 1.2 times standard galactic normal." Several aliens in the crowd made sounds of amazement. Apparently, 1.2 times normal gravity was considered incredibly dangerous. "Our finest warriors train there for only short periods," Thelinar continued. "Most can only handle it for an hour or two. If humans are truly as capable as they claim, surely they could survive this environment for, let us say, 48 hours? The challenge hung in the air like smoke. Dong-hyun looked at his crew. He could see the answer in their eyes. "We accept," he said. More murmurs went through the crowd. Some aliens looked excited. Others looked worried. A few looked like they thought the humans had just agreed to kill themselves. General Morthek, an Althan military leader, stepped forward. "Captain, you should understand what you are agreeing to. The gravity in that facility would crush most species instantly. Even our strongest warriors can barely move in such conditions." "We understand," Dong-hyun said. "When do we start?" "In 3 days," Thelinar said. "We will prepare the facility and broadcast the test to the entire galaxy. Everyone will be able to watch and see how heavy world species handle extreme conditions." As the meeting ended, and the aliens began to leave, Dong-hyun gathered his crew in a corner of the hall. "Are we really doing this?" asked Engineer Hana. "Yes," Dong-hyun said. "They think 1.2 times their gravity is extreme. That's barely more than we're used to on Earth." Medical Officer Woo Jin was running calculations on his tablet. According to their measurements, their standard galactic normal is about 1/10 of Earth gravity. So 1.2 times their normal would be about 1/8 of Earth gravity, finished Sergeant Kyung-ho. "This is going to be easy." "Don't get overconfident," warned Yoonji. "We still need to be careful. If we make this look too easy, they might get suspicious. Or scared," added Hana. Dong-hyun nodded. "We'll do the test and we'll pass it. But let's try not to terrify our new alien friends too much." As they walked back to their ship, the humans could hear aliens talking about the upcoming test. Most seemed to think the humans were about to die in a spectacular way. A few were taking bets on how long the humans would last before they collapsed. 48 hours in crushing gravity, one alien was saying. "Those poor heavy worlders have no idea what they have agreed to." "I give them 2 hours before they beg to be let out," said another. Sergeant Kyung-ho smiled grimly. "If they only knew," he said quietly. "Knew what?" asked Hana. "That we've been training our whole lives for this test. Every day on Earth was harder than anything they're about to put us through." The next 3 days passed quickly. The humans prepared their equipment and ran through their plans. Meanwhile, news of the test spread across the galaxy. Millions of aliens were planning to watch the broadcast to see how the strange heavy world species would handle extreme gravity. On Kethvar, the Althan were preparing their facility with confidence. They had no doubt about how the test would end. The humans would collapse quickly, proving once and for all that heavy world species were limited, creatures who couldn't handle real challenges. They had no idea that they were about to learn something that would change how the entire galaxy saw humanity forever. The crushing weight that they thought would destroy the humans was actually less than what every human had been living with since birth. The stage was set for a demonstration that would shock the galaxy and establish humanity's reputation among the stars. The morning of the test, planet Kethvar's training facility buzzed with activity. Aliens from across the galaxy had gathered to watch what many expected to be a quick and embarrassing failure for humanity. The facility itself was impressive, a series of connected domes where gravity could be controlled with perfect precision. General Morthek stood in the main control room, watching dozens of screens that showed every angle of the test area. The room was kept at comfortable 0.2 galactic standard gravity, perfect for Althan physiology. Around him, other Althan officers prepared their equipment with excited anticipation. "The humans should arrive shortly," announced Science Officer Valara, checking her instruments. "All systems are ready. We can increase gravity gradually or all at once as needed. Start at 1.2 and maintain it," ordered Morthek. No need to be gentle. They accepted the challenge knowing the conditions. In another room, Captain Dong-hyun and his team were putting on their standard duty uniforms. They had decided against any special equipment, just regular clothes and basic supplies for 48 hours. "Remember," said First Officer Yoonji, "act like this is difficult, but not impossible. We don't want to shock them too much." Sergeant Kyung-ho stretched his arms and rolled his shoulders. "It's going to be hard to pretend this is challenging. Their extreme gravity is going to feel like a vacation." Engineer Hana checked her toolkit. "I've got repair work planned to show we can still do precision tasks. Medical Officer Woo Jin has some first aid scenarios ready. Just be yourselves, said Dong-hyun. Do what humans do best. Adapt and overcome. They walked into the test facility and immediately the watching aliens began commenting on their movement. Look how heavily they step, whispered one observer. They're already struggling and we haven't even started the test. Their breathing seems labored, noted another. Perhaps we should reconsider this. We don't want to kill them. The humans reached the center of the test area, a large open space with various obstacles, equipment, and exercise areas. Cameras captured every angle for broadcast across the galaxy. Human team, came General Morthek's voice over the speakers. Are you ready to begin? Ready, called back Dong-hyun. Initiating gravity increase to 1.2 galactic standard. May your ancestors protect you. The gravity generators hummed to life. In the control room, aliens watched their screens with intense focus, expecting to see the humans immediately collapse under the crushing weight. Instead, they saw something they didn't expect. The humans continued moving normally. That's strange, muttered Velara, checking her instruments. The gravity increase should have been immediate and obvious. Sergeant Kyung-ho began his first planned exercise, a series of combat drills. He moved smoothly through punches, kicks, and rolls that would have been impossible for any alien in the galaxy under such conditions. To him, it felt like exercising underwater. Everything was easier and lighter than normal. How was he moving so fast? Asked a shocked Elthan officer. The gravity should be crushing him. Engineer Hana sat down at a complex piece of machinery and began taking it apart with delicate precision. Her fingers, which the aliens thought were too thick and clumsy for fine work, moved with perfect control as she identified and fixed small problems in the equipment. This is impossible, breathed General Morthek. No being can work with such precision under crushing gravity. Check the gravity generators. All systems functioning perfectly, sir, reported a technician. Gravity is exactly 1.2 standard. As the hours passed, the aliens' amazement turned to confusion, then to growing horror. The humans weren't just surviving, they were thriving. They moved, worked, and even seemed to be enjoying themselves. Medical Officer Woo Jin treated a small cut on Hana's finger with steady hands while standing in gravity that would instantly kill most aliens. His movements were calm and professional, as if he was working in a comfortable medical bay instead of under crushing force. Sir, said Velara quietly, I've been running calculations. If the humans are moving this easily under 1.2 standard gravity, and they said they come from a heavy world, what are you thinking? Asked Morthek, though his voice suggested he was beginning to understand. Their home gravity must be much higher than we thought. Much higher. By the 12th hour, news of the test was spreading across the galaxy faster than light. Alien species everywhere were watching in disbelief as the humans continued their activities, as if nothing unusual was happening. Captain Dong-hyun even took time to exercise, doing push-ups and running laps around the facility. Each push-up lifted his entire body weight against gravity that would flatten any other known species. Each step of his run hit the ground with force that would shatter alien bones. They're not even tired, whispered an Althan observer. They've been under crushing gravity for 12 hours and they're not even breathing hard. The 20th hour brought a new shock. Engineer Hana had built a small device from spare parts, something that required incredibly precise work with tiny components. She assembled it while walking around as casually as someone might fold laundry. The fine motor control required for that work. Velara's voice trailed off. Even our best engineers need special tools and steady surfaces for such precision. She's doing it while moving under gravity that should prevent any complex thought. General Morthek was no longer watching with amusement. His silver eyes showed something closer to fear. What exactly are these humans? By the 30th hour, the test had become less about proving human capability and more about aliens trying to understand what they were witnessing. The humans had not only survived conditions that should have killed them, they had made those conditions look easy. Sergeant Kyung-ho demonstrated his strength by lifting equipment that weighed more than most aliens' entire bodies. Engineer Hana continued her precision work without any loss of skill. Medical Officer Woo Jin treated increasingly complex medical scenarios with the same steady competence he would show in a normal hospital. They're not struggling at all, said Morthek quietly. This level of gravity isn't even challenging them. It's like they're used to something much worse. Science Officer Villara was frantically calculating numbers on her computer. Sir, if they're this comfortable at 1.2 standard and they mentioned their homeworld has high gravity, I think their home gravity might be 10 times standard. Maybe more. The control room fell silent. 10 times standard gravity was beyond the imagination of any species in the galaxy. It was the kind of force used to crush metal or test starship hulls. The idea that living beings could evolve under such conditions was terrifying. As the 40th hour approached, the humans showed no signs of fatigue, stress, or limitation. They had not just passed the test, they had made it look like child's play. And in the control room, the aliens were beginning to realize that they had made a terrible mistake. They had challenged beings who were forged by gravitational forces that would serve as execution methods for every other known species in the galaxy. The test still had 8 hours to go, but the real revelation was just beginning. The 48th hour arrived like a thunderclap. Captain Dong Hyun and his team walked out of the gravity chamber, looking as fresh as when they had entered. They stretched casually, checked their equipment, and spoke to each other in normal voices. To any observer, they might have just finished a pleasant afternoon walk. In the control room, the silence was deafening. General Morthek stared at the screen showing the humans' exit. His hands shook slightly as he turned to Science Officer Villara. "Run the numbers again," he said quietly. "All of them." Commander Retell, who had been watching from another observation post, felt something cold growing in his stomach. These were the same beings his people had dismissed as clumsy and primitive just weeks ago. The same beings they had mocked for their thick bodies and heavy movements. "I need to speak with Captain Hyunwoo immediately," Retell said into his communicator. "Private meeting. Emergency priority." An hour later, Captain Hyunwoo sat across from Commander Retell in a small conference room aboard the Althan ship. The artificial gravity was set to the comfortable 0.2 standard that Althan preferred. Hyunwoo barely noticed the difference. "Captain," Retell began, his voice careful and controlled, "we need to discuss something important about your species." "Of course," Hyunwoo replied. "What would you like to know?" Retell was quiet for a moment, gathering his courage. "Your people just spent 48 hours in gravity that should have killed them instantly. They moved, worked, and even exercised under conditions that we used to test the strength of starship hulls." Hyunwoo nodded. "The test was easier than we expected. Your 1.2 times standard gravity was quite comfortable." "Comfortable?" Retell's voice cracked slightly. "Captain, please help me understand. What is the gravity on your home world? Earth?" Hyunwoo thought for a moment. "In your measurements, it would be about 9.8 times your standard gravity." The room fell completely silent. Retell stared at the human captain, his silver eyes wide with shock. 9.8 times, and he whispered, "That's impossible. No biological life could survive such crushing force." "Well, we did," Hyunwoo said with a small smile. "All human life evolved under that gravity. Our bones, muscles, organs, even our brains developed under constant pressure that would instantly kill most species." Retell felt like he was falling into a deep hole. "Your children, they grow up under such conditions?" "From birth," Hyunwoo confirmed. "Human babies are born into gravity that would crush an adult Althan. They learn to walk, run, and play under forces that your military uses for extreme training." Dr. Ji Hai, who had been quiet during the conversation, leaned forward. "Commander, I think there's been a fundamental misunderstanding between our species. When you saw us moving slowly and carefully, you thought we were clumsy. But we were actually being very gentle because we didn't want to damage your equipment or hurt anyone." "Hurt anyone?" Retell asked weakly. "Human muscle density is designed to work against crushing gravity," Ji Hai explained. "When we shake hands with you, we have to be very careful not to break your bones. When we walk on your ships, we have to step lightly so we don't crack your floors." The full horror of the situation was beginning to dawn on Retell. "When Engineer So Young repaired our power core, those thick, clumsy fingers of hers are actually precision instruments," Ji Hai said gently. "Human hands must be strong enough to function under crushing gravity, but precise enough for delicate work. So Young could have crushed your power core without even noticing, but instead she repaired it perfectly." Hyunwoo added, "When your people called us primitive, we were confused. Humans developed spaceflight while fighting gravity that would prevent most species from even standing up. We built computers while our brains were under constant pressure that would kill other beings instantly." Retell put his head in his hands. "We thought you were compensating for physical limitations. But you were." You were working under impossible conditions and making it look normal. Not impossible, Hyun-woo corrected. Just different. Every human child learns to function under gravity that would serve as a death sentence for most galactic species. Every breath we take is an act of resistance against crushing force. Science Officer Velara appeared on the room's communication screen. Her face was pale and her hands shook as she held her data tablet. "Commander," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, "I've finished calculating human physiology based on their home gravity. The results are terrifying." "Tell me," Retel said, though he clearly didn't want to hear it. "Human bone density is greater than our starship hull materials. Their muscle strength per body weight exceeds our industrial machinery. Their cardiovascular systems pump fluid against pressure that would burst our strongest containers." She paused, looking at her numbers again as if she couldn't believe them. "Every human being is essentially a biological machine built to standards that exceed our most advanced military equipment. They don't just survive conditions that would kill us, they thrive in them." Dr. Jihai spoke gently. "This is why we were confused when you questioned our technological abilities. If humans can develop science and engineering while living under crushing gravity, imagine what we can accomplish when that pressure is removed." Hyun-woo leaned back in his chair, which creaked slightly under his weight. "Commander, when humans look at the stars, we're not just dreaming of exploration. We're looking at freedom from the constant weight that has shaped every moment of our existence. Space travel isn't just adventure for us, it's liberation." Retel finally looked up, his silver eyes filled with something between awe and terror. "Your species, every member of your species, is essentially a living weapon forged by gravitational forces that would serve as the ultimate execution method for any other known life form. We prefer to think of ourselves as explorers," Hyun-woo said with a gentle smile. "But yes, Earth made us very durable." The meeting continued for another hour, with the humans patiently explaining their physiology and capabilities. Each revelation hit the Althan like a physical blow. By the end, Retel understood that his people had not just misunderstood humanity. They had mocked beings who casually lived under conditions that represented the absolute limits of what was physically possible. "I must inform the Galactic Federation. Immediately," Retel said finally. "This changes everything we thought we knew about your species." "We hope this will lead to better understanding between our peoples," Hyun-woo replied. "Humans want to be friends with the galaxy, not feared by it." But as Retel left the meeting, he knew that fear was exactly what the galaxy would feel when they learned the truth about humanity. The beings they had dismissed as primitive heavy-worlders were actually living proof that life could thrive under conditions that challenged the very laws of physics. The galaxy was about to learn that humans didn't just survive impossible odds, they were forged by them. The news spread through the galaxy like wildfire. Within days, every major news network was broadcasting the same incredible story. The species everyone had dismissed as primitive heavy-worlders were actually living beings, forged by gravitational forces that defied imagination. Ambassador Thelinar stood before the Galactic Federation Council once again, but this time his tone was completely different. His silver eyes, which had once shown amusement when looking at humans, now showed deep respect mixed with barely controlled fear. "Honored representatives," he began, his musical voice carrying across the great hall, "I must formally retract every statement I have made about human capabilities. I must also issue a public apology to humanity for our fundamental misunderstanding of their nature." The hall buzzed with conversation as aliens from dozens of species discussed the shocking revelations. Captain Dong-hyun sat with his crew in the human section, watching as the galaxy's entire perspective on humanity shifted in real time. "The test on Kethvar has shown us something that challenges our understanding of what biological life can achieve." Thelinar continued, "Humans do not come from a heavy world as we understand the term. They come from a world with gravitational forces that would serve as immediate execution methods for every other known species." Dr. Kolveth, the Federation's chief scientist, stood up from his seat. His tentacles waved nervously as he spoke. "The implications are staggering. Human children grow up under conditions that we use to test military equipment. Their everyday existence requires surviving forces that represent the absolute limits of physical possibility. Engineer So Young, who had become something of a celebrity since the test, found herself being approached by alien scientists and engineers constantly. They wanted to understand how beings could develop such precise motor control while living under crushing gravity. It's not that hard to understand, she explained to a group of fascinated Jektar engineers. When you grow up where any mistake might kill you, you learn to be very careful and very precise. Human children learn fine motor control under conditions that would make your best tools useless. The military implications were not lost on anyone. General Morthek had already begun sending reports to Federation Command about human combat capabilities. The test had shown that every human soldier was essentially a super heavy gravity specialist who could function under conditions that would incapacitate any other species' military forces. I've seen Sergeant Kyung-ho move, Morthek told a gathering of military leaders. He performs combat maneuvers under crushing gravity as easily as we breathe. Imagine what human soldiers could accomplish in normal galactic environments. The economic impact was equally significant. Human engineering, developed under impossible conditions, suddenly made sense. When engineer Hana demonstrated building complex devices while under pressure that would prevent other species from even thinking clearly, alien corporations began scrambling to understand human manufacturing techniques. They don't build things the way we do because they can't, realized Valara during a presentation to the Federation Science Council. They build things that way because they have to. Every human tool, every human machine, every human technology is designed to work under conditions that would destroy our best equipment. Captain Hunwoo found himself giving speeches to audiences across the galaxy. Everywhere he went, aliens stared at him with a mixture of awe and disbelief, trying to understand how he could speak and move so casually while carrying the equivalent of a crushing death sentence on his shoulders. People ask me what it's like to live under such gravity, he told one audience on the world of Veltar. But that's like asking what it's like to breathe air or see light. It's just how we live. Every human who has ever existed learned to walk, talk, and think under pressure that would instantly kill most galactic life. The Federation quickly established new protocols for dealing with humans. Special accommodations were made on space stations and diplomatic facilities. Warning signs were posted near human quarters, cautioning other species about the danger of physical contact with beings whose casual movements could cause serious injury. But perhaps the most significant change was in how aliens viewed human achievements. Technologies that had seemed crude and overbuilt suddenly revealed themselves as marvels of engineering designed to function under impossible conditions. Human computers work under gravity that would crush our most advanced processors, observed Dr. Kolveth. Their spaceships are built to standards that exceed our military vessels because they have to be. Every human achievement was accomplished while fighting forces that represent the ultimate limits of physics. The gravity acclimatization program became the Federation's most ambitious scientific project. Alien volunteers attempted to gradually adapt to higher gravity environments, hoping to better understand human capabilities. Most species couldn't adapt beyond 0.5 galactic standard without serious health risks. We wanted to understand how they think, explained one Althan researcher who had spent months slowly increasing his gravity tolerance. But even at half their normal environment, complex thought becomes nearly impossible. The fact that humans developed advanced science under such conditions suggests mental capabilities we can barely comprehend. Children across the galaxy learned new lessons in their schools. The story of humanity became a tale of impossible perseverance, of life thriving under conditions that challenge the very laws of nature. Human phrases like, "What doesn't kill you makes you stronger," took on new meaning when spoken by species who understood what could actually kill them. 6 months after the test, Captain Dong-hyun returned to Harmony's Edge for a special ceremony. The Federation was formally welcoming humanity as full members with special recognition for their unique capabilities. As he stood before the assembled representatives, Dong-hyun delivered the speech that would become famous throughout the galaxy. People often ask what makes humans special. They wonder how we developed advanced technology while living under crushing gravity. They want to understand how we think and work under conditions that would kill most life instantly. He paused, looking out at the sea of alien faces, all watching him with respect and fascination. The answer is simple. We didn't become strong despite our gravity. We became strong because of it. Every step we take, every breath we draw, Every thought we think is an act of defiance against forces that would crush most life in the galaxy. When you understand that, you understand why humanity reaches for the stars. He gestured toward the great windows showing the star-filled void of space. We don't explore space to escape our world. We explore space because we've already learned to carry infinity on our shoulders. Earth taught us that impossible things become possible when you refuse to give up. The crushing weight of our world didn't limit us. It forged us into beings who make the impossible look routine. The applause that followed was unlike anything ever heard in the Federation Council. It wasn't just appreciation. It was recognition that they were witnessing something unique in the galaxy's history. Humanity's reputation was forever changed. No longer seen as primitive heavy-worlders, they were now recognized as the beings who laughed at physics and made the impossible routine. The galaxy had learned to respect the species that turned survival into an art form and transformed crushing adversity into the foundation for reaching the stars. In the end, the aliens didn't just understand humans better. They understood that life could achieve far more than they had ever imagined possible. And somewhere in the galaxy, human children continued to grow up under crushing gravity, learning lessons about strength and perseverance that would one day carry their species to heights the galaxy had never dreamed of.